Yo! Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about street racing games. Now, other than video games, another big interest of mine are cars. So I play a lot of street racing games. I'll be going over 6 different games that are very different from each other, including the street racing RPG from Squaresoft, Racing Lagoon. I do talk about this game the longest, so I put it at the end. First up, we'll be talking about Initial D on the PS1. Now, I did beat this game, so there are going to be some spoilers, so I did put a spoiler warning with a timestamp. Please do consider liking and subscribing. I'm really trying to grow this channel, so it would really be appreciated. Well, that's all I got to say, so let's go! Initial D was released in Japan on January 7, 1999. Initial D is a manga written by Shuichi Shigeno. The story follows high school student Takumi Fujiwara, a daydreamer with no interest in racing. Turns out he's been driving his mountain road doing tofu deliveries since middle school. His father Bunta is a former street racer himself. His 86 Toyota Torino is a finely tuned drifting machine. Takumi does his deliveries in the 86 and races in it also. The anime series was wildly popular in the early to mid 2000s. If you've never watched it, I highly recommend it. I've known people who don't watch anime that have watched all of Initial D. This game for the PS1 is based on the manga. It follows the story up to the Emperor Racing Team with their Lancer evolutions. If you know the anime, then some of the characters are going to have different colors to their attire. Also, the soundtrack doesn't feature any songs like Speedy Speed Boy or Heartbeat, so no Eurobeat in this game. The soundtrack isn't bad though. This game is all about drifting on mountain roads. This game plays very slippery. When I first played it, I kept losing because I couldn't control my car. Check out this battle between my son and I. When playing freerun or practice, you select the torque, handling, and grip. We didn't find the sweet spot for the cars we tried. We were sliding and crashing constantly. It started to feel like there was a magnet pulling me to the walls. The story mode plays much better. Takumi's A6 is already preset, so it plays nice. Now, it will take a couple races to get the hang of the game. It's still very slippery in story mode, obviously so you can drift like they do in the series. Once you get the hang of it, it's a very fun game. Playing through the story mode unlocks characters for free run and practice. The story is played out through cutscenes and mostly stills. If you know the series, you'll know what's going on. There is no voice acting in the game though. There was at least one battle that the game skipped, and that was the one against the Civic. I beat the story mode, but there's still quite a few cars locked. One is the outline of a hatchback Civic, so there's still more cars to unlock once you beat the game. Alright, here's that spoiler warning I talked about. The last boss is Bunta in 8-6. This battle is added and it didn't happen in the series, but Bunta does get a WRX and flies past Takumi while Takumi is practicing. I thought this was cool. I always wanted to see a battle between Takumi and Bunta. Once you beat him, you get a bonus race. I raced Ikitani and unlocked his Nissan Silvia. My guess is you unlock other cars by racing Bunta again. I didn't test it, but it makes sense. Why would Ikitani be the last boss? Initial D is a surprisingly fun street racer on the PS1. If you like Initial D, I say play it if you can. If you're not a fan of the series but want to play an arcade drifting game that you don't have to modify your car with, it's definitely one to check out. Burnout 3 Takedown was released in Australia on September 3, 2004. Next released in North America on September 8, 2004. Then released in PAL territories on September 10, 2004. And now on the PS2 in Australia on September 16, 2004. The first Australian release was for the Xbox. Burnout 3 is an insanely fun arcade racing game. High speed and car crashes are this game's focus. There's even a mode dedicated to car crashes. This series was extremely popular. If you were playing games during the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era, you've most likely heard of it or played it, but I bet you forgot how awesome this game is. The soundtrack is licensed music, so I won't be featuring it. Burnout 3 has you flying down the streets at insane speeds. The game encourages dangerous driving. In the game, I mean. Driving on the other side of the road barely avoiding traffic gives you a turbo boost. Taking out other racers also increases the boost but makes the gauge longer. The career mode has you racing in different countries around the world. There are quite a few different types of races and other driving events. Road Rage is a fun event. This one doesn't have a finish line. You race around the streets trying to take out the other drivers. Well, takedowns as this game puts it. Every time a takedown is performed in single player, it slows down time and the camera shifts to the racer's car crashing. The crashes in this game really still look spectacular. The game still looks great. Back to the career mode, there are crash events too. In these the objective is to cause as much destruction as possible by crashing. After a certain amount of vehicles pile up into the wreck, the player can explode, causing even more damage. The destroyed vehicle can be controlled while flying through the air. The camera then goes over all the damage in dollars. In career mode there's a set amount you need to hit. In multiplayer it's just about who has the highest dollar amount in damage. It's a really fun party game. Burnout 3 is just as good as I remember it being. It's a very polished game, something we don't see very much anymore. If it's been a while since you played this one, well, it's a lot of fun playing it again. If you've never played it, I highly recommend it. Tight controls, great graphics, just a really fun racer. The Fast and the Furious was first released in North America on September 26, 2006, then released in PAL territories on March 3, 2007. This game completely flew under my radar when it came out. I don't remember hearing anything about it until a few years later. This game was developed by Eutechnyx. They also made Street Racing Syndicate. Eutechnyx says this is a spiritual successor to that game. In the career mode, the highways of Tokyo are open to drive on. It's more like Need for Speed Underground 2 than Tokyo Extreme Racer. I will be talking about one of the TXR games later. Anyway, there is some guy that lets you race in his NSX. This nets you money to buy your first car. There are some races on the highway to challenge to impromptu races by flashing your high beams at them. Most of these races are done in hotspots. These have racers from teams in them. It's one team at a time in each hotspot. Defeat all the members and the team leader appears. Here's a cool Easter egg. There's an Initial D team in here. I love the names Kyosuke and Reisuke. Races don't just happen on the highway. Being that this game is based on the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, there's mountain racing. It's a pretty cool way of traveling to get to certain places. You'll have to take an exit. Every location on the map can be fast traveled to as well. Vehicle customization is done at Han's Speed Shop. Speaking of Han, did you know that Tokyo Drift isn't the character's first appearance? He first appeared in a Justin Lin film called Better Luck Tomorrow. Justin Lin directed Tokyo Drift. Better Luck Tomorrow does show why Han is on the run, and it's a pretty good movie. So yeah, Han's Speed Shop. There are a lot of performance and body kits, paint jobs and the such. Gotta say, a lot of the parts are cheap. I got my FCRX-7 to over 500 horsepower really fast. I'd say after about 3 or 4 hours of play. Because of this, it's very easy to blow all the early competition away. And they pay well, so win a couple races and go buy parts. Win a couple more races and go buy more parts. To buy cars, you have to travel to dealerships. If you want a Supra, you have to go to the Toyota dealership. If you want a Silvia, you go to the Nissan dealership, and so on. The game does have an interesting selection of cars. For example, there's a turbocharged 4-door Skyline. There are plenty of cars from manufacturers from all over the world. This is another really fun racer. It's not a very well-known game either. It feels weird to say the Fast and the Furious is kind of a gem. I'm really having a great time playing this one. It's not perfect, but if you're looking for a new street racing game to play, give it a shot. Tokyo Highway Battle was first released in Japan on May 3, 1996, next released in North America on August 9, 1996, and in PAL territories on June 27, 1997. These were all for the PlayStation. There was a Saturn port released in Japan on February 28, 1997. Well, we're back to Tokyo. Spoiler, the next game is set in Tokyo also. Tokyo Highway Battle is part of the Shotoku Battle series that started on the Super Famicom in Japan. This is the first game in the series we'd receive here in North America. The next one we get will be called Tokyo Extreme Racer. Tokyo Highway Battle is much different than its sequel. This one is a very arcadey racer with time checkpoints. None of the cars are licensed, but they're modeled after real cars, so as long as you're familiar with cars, you'll know what they're supposed to be. Cars are unlocked as races are completed. They aren't purchased, they just appear as selectable cars. The races are on tracks on the streets of Tokyo with traffic, just like later games in the series Tokyo Extreme Racer Drift 2 and Import Tuner Challenge. Rivals have a bit of dialogue before a race. These are one-on-one 2 or 3 lap races. Some will have a lot of turns to drift around, while others will have long straightaways. The drifting can take a little bit to get the hang of. I lost a lot of races, had to really memorize those tracks. Driving wise, it's an arcade racer. Once you do get the hang of it, it's an enjoyable game for about 20 minutes. Money is earned from winning races. Can you guess what you get to buy with it? Performance parts. This game has a decent variety of parts. One thing I wish that stayed in the series are bolt-on turbo kits. This game has them. So one weird thing that killed my fun was that when I changed cars, all my parts disappeared when I tried to reselect my modified car. So it's kind of hard to recommend. I'd say if you're curious about the earlier entries in the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, it's worth checking out. Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 was first released in Japan at Shotoku Battle 2 on June 22, 2000. Next released in North America on September 26, 2000, then in PAL territories as Tokyo Highway Challenge 2 on January 19, 2001. The first 2 games in the series are on the good old loud Sega Dreamcast. Seriously, I always forget how loud it is every time I boot it up. Still, it was one hell of a console. I still have my Sega Dreamcast magazine issue number 0 that came with my Dreamcast on $99.99. I picked Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 because I've already reviewed 0 and onward. This is the best street racing series to me. Hell, it's the best racing series to me. It's a mix of simulation and arcade racing. There's a very real need to adjust gear ratios and suspension settings to get far in this game. There are versus battles and time attack, but the real reason to play this is quest mode. In quest mode, you freely roam the streets of Tokyo, challenging racing teams and other lone drivers like yourself called Wanderers. The Wanderers are a real pain though, because they all have some sort of special requirement to race them. It starts you off with some cash to buy a car. Once again, these cars aren't licensed. The Eclipse GSX has a glimpse on its taillights. The game uses chassis codes for car names. For instance, the AE86 is a Toyota Truona Sprinter, and the EG6 is a hatchback Civic SIR2. Once on the highway, rival races are challenged by flashing your high beams. When the race begins, SP bars appear at the top of the screen. These work kind of like life bars. The farther you or your rival fall behind, the faster it drains. Also hitting cars or from any other type of crashing, so it's very possible to lose a race when you're in the lead. The rivals have a little bios about them. The cool thing is if it says so and so can't take turns well, then the AI will turn badly. These races don't last very long. At first they're maybe a little over a minute. Later on these are 20 or 30 seconds sometimes. When you win races you earn money. Back at your garage you can buy parts, new cars, and change your settings. Now as I said earlier, settings are extremely important. In this game, suspension settings must be set for high top speed and for turning. This game doesn't have any auto settings, so it'll be a lot of trial and error. Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 has a lot of cars to unlock. Whenever you defeat a rival that has a car you can't purchase, it'll unlock it. There are many variations of the same car. It's one of the very few racing games to feature the Skyline GTST for the R32, 33, and 34. Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 and 0 have an awesome collection of cars in them. Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 is such a fun, addictive racer. It really is all about the legendary street racing scene in Japan during the 80s and 90s. It takes inspiration from Wang at Midnight for sure. I would say that 0 is better. After reviewing 0, 3, and Import Tuner Challenge, I would say I have a lot of experience with the series. I said 2 is my favorite in those. After playing them all again, I'd say this one's the second best. If you enjoy racing games and haven't tried these cult classics in the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, then you really should give them a shot. Even the PSP one is pretty good. And hey, you gotta love those California license plates in a game set in Tokyo. Racing Lagoon was first released in Japan on June 10, 1999 for the PlayStation. The finished English fan translation patch for Racing Lagoon was released on November 11, 2021 by fan translation group Hilltopworks. I would just like to say thank you to all the amazing fan translators out there. So I first heard about this game in 2002. My friend Sakam told me about it after he read an article on Racing Lagoon in Tokyo Pop magazine. And anyone watching this remember that magazine? Now, a street racing RPG for the PS1 may sound strange, but at its heart it's an arcade racer with leveling up and a story that's actually kind of interesting. In Racing Lagoon, you play as Sho Asaki, the newest member of the Bay Lagoon racing team in Yokohama. Before his first race, he doesn't get all the hype about racing. That all changes after the race. The game's story plays out kind of like a TV series. Each night is an episode with some sort of event or race. There are lots of side events and races to do every night too. Now, these characters look weird. There's just something off about their proportions. Some also have really big shoulder pad jackets. Through a lot of the story cutscenes, they just stand in really strange positions. The racing feels a little awkward at first, but it doesn't take long to get the hang of. Just like the last two games, there are no licensed cars. The main character starts off with an 8.6 or a Toyota Trueno. Now, this is a squaresoft RPG, so yes, there is a world map. While driving on the world map, you can challenge any of the traffic on the road by flashing your high beams. There are also cars driving around really fast flashing their high beams. These are kind of like random battles since they can't always be avoided. There are multiple tracks for each city in the game. Depending on where you get into a battle is which track you'll get. Also, which direction the opponent's facing is the side of the track you'll be starting on. There's no collision with the cars on the city map, so you can drive on the wrong side of the road flashing your high beams, or you can get challenged by one of the fast flashing ones. When you win a race, you receive RP. This is a form of currency. After you defeat a rival, you can take one part from your opponent as long as you have enough RP. This includes engines, chassis, and frames. This is how you get a majority of the parts in Racing Lagoon. In the game you only have one car, but you end up with the parts to build lots of cars. Or like I did, build cars with mixed engines, chassis, and bodies. At one point I had an R32 Skyline engine with an S14 Silvia chassis and a Supra body. Where I am now, I have an R33 Skyline engine, an FDRX7 chassis, and an R32 Skyline body. Instead of experience points, engines, chassis, and bodies level up by racing. It's a certain amount of races per level. These don't have any effect on their performance. Instead, they open up upgrade slots. Each part takes up one slot. Each engine, chassis, and body are leveled up separately. While your leveled up part may have more slots than one that you find, the new part could have more potential to have more slots. I switched from the Supra body to the Skyline body because I maxed out the Supra and it didn't make any sense not to level anything up. This can get very grindy. Me, I don't mind. I mean, it's racing, so I'm gonna keep doing it. There are tons of parts to collect and buy. The part shop usually has a couple parts you won't find easily. Money can sometimes be found, but you can convert RP into yen at the bank if you need some cash. You can put multiple turbochargers on your car. I thought that was pretty cool. One thing I don't like though is that the manual transmission is a part instead of an option. I'd rather get better transmissions. A lot of times I didn't have space for it. There are a lot of events at the locations dotted around the map. Some are free parts, others might give you some time to get to know the other characters better. Then some are races with very rare parts. Oh, also you save at the gas station. To get to other cities you take the highway. This is definitely more of a drama than anything. Teams have rivalries. Characters on the same team have rivalries also. Sho thinks to himself a lot. There are long scenes of him explaining places. The game's got a good soundtrack. There's jazz, electronic, and rock. There are quite a few tracks that I really liked in this one. Overall, I really have to say that after 20 hours with it, I'm still loving Racing Lagoon. There's still a lot of story left to go. It's a very fun, addictive, and different kind of game. The RPG part never really gets in the way of the racing. With the massive amount of customization, you can really build some interesting machines. Gotta say a big thank you to Hilltopworks for translating this. This is a street racing game definitely worth playing. Do you have any memories of these street racing games? If you do, leave them down in the comments below. Now I'm really trying to grow this channel, so please consider liking and subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.